So we have now Tori Robinson. She has joined from London. कुछ लोगों को आपको मालूम होगा टोरी जब यहाँ पर आई थी कुछ सालों पहले, शायद कुछ आप में से कुछ लोग यहाँ पे प्रेजेंट थे और जो लोग यहाँ पे याद है उनको आपने देखा होगा कि वो बहुत ही बड़ी एक्टिविस्ट है, आजकल एपिलेप्सी अवेयरनेस में काफी काम कर रही हैं. So I welcome you, Tori. Are you there?
I am here, yes. Thank you. Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you very much and welcome to Epilepsy Foundation.
Well, thank you for having me again, because obviously I was actually in Mumbai before lockdown, so I got to meet a lovely number of all of you, and I'll never forget that, and I hope that I can come back at some point. That would be lovely. For those I haven't met, my name is Tori Robinson, and I'm a person with epilepsy. I've had epilepsy since I was a child, and I've also had a temporal lobe resection or epilepsy surgery where they took part of my brain away as treatment for my epilepsy. I still have epilepsy and I still take medication, but things are a lot better now, which is brilliant. Today, I want to talk about how to speak with confidence when it comes to your epilepsy. Excuse me. So I've always been really confident talking about my epilepsy because the epilepsy is not me. The epilepsy is a disease that is separate from me. It forms a huge part of my life, yes, but just as if I had asthma, the asthma would not be me. If I had a missing leg, the missing leg would not define who I was. Now, because I've always loved the sciences, I love neurology and neuroscience and anything to where you look to research about epilepsy. And I would highly recommend, if you have epilepsy or if you know somebody with epilepsy, then to learn as much as you can about it. Because the more you learn, the more exciting it becomes. And the more confident you become talking about the epilepsy, because then you realize the epilepsies affect so many people in the world. They affect people from every country in the world. And they, yes, affect us very differently, depending upon culture, depending upon the type of epilepsy we have, because there are more than 60 different types of seizure. Some of us have a genetic epilepsy, some of us don't. But what I find is that we have so much in common, so much. And a lot of the stuff that we have in common is not actually the epilepsy. Once we move past the epilepsy, we'll find things like, oh, we have a similar type of humor, or we both have an interest in learning about medicine, or we both like the same actor in Hollywood or Bollywood, or, you know, things like that. And that's really important it's important to find out things about yourself that are not to do with epilepsy. Now, I'll give you a great example of somebody I know who is like this. One of my friends, he has epileptic seizures that cannot be controlled. Like me, he's had brain surgery for his epilepsy. He's also had a VNS implantation in his chest, which connects with his brain. He takes anti-seizure medications, and he still has seizures, which is very unfortunate. But guess what? He's a funny man. He studies neuroscience at university. So many things. There are so many things that he does that are not to do with his epilepsy. But then I'll give you another example of how you become confident. I know somebody else with epilepsy who has learning difficulties. She has controlled seizures, which is fantastic, but she's not great at communicating. She finds it difficult to understand things that other people, for instance, if you've been to school or been to university or whatever, she can't understand those things because of her learning difficulties. But she still doesn't let her epilepsy define her, because despite her learning difficulties, she learns about epilepsy and she realizes She's not the only person having seizures. She's not the only person who takes these medications. And she and I are very different, but we met because of the epilepsy. And then we talk about things that are not to do with epilepsy, because the epilepsy gets a bit boring sometimes. She has lots of other things in her life which are not about the epilepsy. Now, I know that things can be very challenging in different countries and different cultures and different families. Now, I want to let you know that somebody in my family was so ashamed of me because of my epilepsy. And this person did not believe I had epilepsy until I was 31, 32. Because, oh, my daughter, she cannot have epilepsy because that's a bad thing. And if she has epilepsy, I need to be ashamed of her. And now I understand that people in other countries experience this as well. But what has always helped me, and it's not been easy, don't get me wrong, but what has always helped me is to be confident and to talk about epilepsy, is learning what causes epilepsy and learning about what research is happening to learn more about epilepsy, and also learning about the other things in addition to epilepsy. So, for instance, my mental health can be very up and down. And I know that lots of people here will understand that as well. And for me, my mental health and looking after my mental health is more important than, or more impactful than the epilepsy. And lots of people don't realize that. But it's not wrong. It's just that you have to prioritize things in your life that are most important for you. Now, I've got a quick story for you guys. So after I had surgery in 2013, I was getting extra frustrated with people because I didn't realize how ignorant other people were about epilepsy, because I would just talk about it confidently. So I decided to set up an organization called Epilepsy Sparks to educate people about epilepsy in a cool way, in a positive way. Now, what's happened over lockdown, I use this as an opportunity to reach out to people from around the world. And by people, I mean doctors, neurologists, scientists, neurophysiologists that do our EEGs, to people who look at different parts of dead bodies, people who might have died from epilepsy, to find out more about it. And I'm just going to share some screenshots with you, okay? So I want you to understand how excited I am about this. I started a podcast and a video series about epilepsy and what can come with it and the research, so that we can realize the positive side of what's happening behind the scenes for us. Because often we have a bad memory, I do, and I forget about the good stuff. So I want everyone to see what the work is being done for us. So let me just share my screen. So can everybody see my screen okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah,
Yes,
Epilepsy
please.
Sparks. Okay, wonderful, wonderful. All right. So I set up this website of my own in my name. And then recently, so it has a bit about me, and it has Epilepsy Sparks Insights, which is the blog, and which is the podcast and the video series. And on here, I have the links to the interviews that I'm doing with this gentleman. Is from Ukraine. He's a doctor. He's a neurologist and psychiatrist. This is a neurologist from the States, the United States, who helps older people with epilepsy. This is a neuropathologist, this lady from the Netherlands, and she looks at pieces of dead body, dead brain, and does research on it to help us who are living. These are people from Denmark who are doing genetic epilepsy research, and there's more and more here. So please feel free to have a look at these. If you click on them, you can see that I explain a bit about the person. and then more detail and how you can help and how you can contact that person. And there's the video and there's the podcast all in one place, so that it's not too complicated for us to find everything. Another thing although you can, if you want, you can go to my YouTube page, which is here, and see all the same stuff. And then also there's the podcast, and so you can see it all separately. And then what I've also done is with my company, Epilepsy Sparks, for us, I've created a glossary so that people can understand what the funny words that doctors use actually mean. For instance, if they say adherence or compliance, we're like, what do you mean? Adherence to what? And they'll be talking about taking our drugs as we have been instructed to. And then here, and I say it wrong, alleles, it's a part of a gene. So if you have genetic epilepsy or know somebody with it, this can be really interesting. Types of EEGs, different parts of your brain are all listed here in alphabetical order. So you can go back to this and understand what your doctor's saying. And the more you understand, the more confident you feel. And the more confident you feel, the better you are equipped to talk about your epilepsy to other people, your family, to employers, and to the public. And then also, this is particularly relevant, I've done a calendar so that we can have things to talk about when it comes to epilepsy. For instance, Purple Day. I've included things like World Autism Acceptance Week, because lots of people with autism have epilepsy, and lots of people with epilepsy have autism. Then we have a day to celebrate doctors and nurses, and it's laid out rather with by month, so that you can just go through this and understand what's happening. I've included things like Stress Awareness Month. A lot of us get really stressed because of our epilepsy and because of the drugs we take, or because of the reaction of people. And then, for instance, I've included National Siblings Day, because lots of families are affected by the epilepsies too. So it's about looking at things from all different perspectives and getting excited about the research. I'm not always happy. I have depression, I have emotional disorder, and I have to see counsellors because of that. I don't want to lie to you guys. It's not easy for me every day, but what helps me immensely is learning more and more about epilepsy and more about the things that often come with it. So like the mental health issues, like the autism, all these different types of things, cerebral palsy, etc. And learning about how it impacts other people, because it doesn't only impact us, it impacts our families. And sometimes, yeah, people get scared, but why do they get scared if we have a seizure? Because they don't understand. So if somebody in front of me, they get, oh my God, you have epilepsy. Yeah, it's really interesting, actually. So you can ask me any question you want. And then they're, really? Yeah, I don't mind talking about it. That's been my experience, but I have had crazy people say to me, all you need to do is put a spoon in your pocket and that will cure your epilepsy. I said, no, that's not correct. And I laughed because it was so silly, but I know these things, this happened in England. It doesn't happen much here, but it does happen, and it's just crazy. So my key messages here are: learn as much as you can about epilepsy. You can use I can send you these links to my websites if you want, if that helps you. And listen to things again, because they're really interesting, and I understand you guys might forget. I forget everything. And share it with anybody who's interested, and make people realize that even if you don't have epilepsy, epilepsy affects you, because you might see somebody having a seizure. You know, somebody in your family could develop epilepsy when they're 30 or 40 or 70. So epilepsy affects everybody. Now I'll be here for about another 30 minutes. So if anybody has any questions, I don't mind, they can put those forward, or you can email me via the Epilepsy Sparks website with questions about what I do and things like that. And if I can answer it, I will. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you so much, Tori, for narrating your story. Thank you so much, Tori, for taking out time on the World Purple Day for raising the awareness regarding the epilepsy. Our patients have heard your story, and they will be finding definite motivation in fighting against this illness that is not just physical but also so much of social and mental stigma. Thank you so much, Tori.
Thank you very much for the invitation and for having me. Thank you.
Bye bye.